This is Karen with My I'm Possible Dream, and I have Lisa Meeks and Tracy Masterson with me. And what is interesting about this is that both Alex and I were interviewed regarding a book that they are writing together. I just felt like I was in a counseling session that day, and I let Alex answer most of the questions. But I'm going to start with Lisa, and can you tell me a little bit about, what the book really is about and how you got asked to write it?
Sure. Thanks, Karen. So the book is about safety concerns for young adults with autism spectrum disorder. It's focused on high-functioning individuals with autism spectrum disorder. So the assumption is that they're going to be living independently at some point. They're going to be in a relationship. They're going to want to be in a sexual relationship eventually. But it also breaks down these things such that even developing a friendship or how you go from an acquaintance to a friendship is something that's addressed. And then the safety concerns with each of these, transitional points into adulthood. What are the safety concerns, and how might an individual on the spectrum have some different development and some different concerns? And then we interviewed individuals on the spectrum. We interviewed parents and let that be part of our information, but we also did some evaluation of the research and the literature and use that to also inform the work. We have tips and tricks and social scripts for each event or each issue. And the reason that I decided to write the book and Tracy decided to write the book was actually because Jessica Kingsley contacted us and said that this was an area where there was a huge gap and that people were talking about very specific things individually in books, but that they weren't talking about them collectively as something that young adults go through, and that there was always an academic slant to it, or there was a teenage slant to it. So individuals 13 to 21, but there was a kind of this dearth of information about individuals that were young adults and that were going to be independent, and some of the information that could be a safety concern, but perhaps parents weren't talking with their son or daughter about. So especially around the sexual behavior and developing relationships and financial independence, being potentially being taken advantage of financially by others. So we felt like it was a really valuable it was a valuable topic, and we worked together to identify individuals who could speak in a expertise way to all of these points, and then either consulted with them or had them as co-authors. And we're excited. It's coming to an end. We're almost at the finish line, and so that's really good. But I think I've grown from doing this and just learned so much. You go into writing a book and you think that you know the topic well because you have to, and you've read all the articles and you are up to date, and then you talk to the families and you talk to the young adults and you think, wow, there's so much more to know. So I'm really excited. Essentially we have numerous co-authors and the people that helped inform the book.
Well, I know, just listening to Tracy interviewing Alex, some of the questions that you were asking him and some of his answers, I was amazed that he had so many great answers off the top of his head. It's not like he was sitting there, just thinking about it and then coming up with an answer just to please you. What made you decide to get involved in this?
Sure. Well, Lisa's very persuasive, first of all. No, but really, truly, it's such an important topic, and I thought I wanted to make sure it was done correctly, because I think with issues of safety, sometimes it can be a real doom and gloom type of outlook. There's dangers when you go to the club. Clubs are dangerous. Avoid them. And I think sometimes when one of my specialties academically is working with adolescents, and again, they engage in a lot of at-risk behaviors, but I think sometimes the more you paint it in a way that it's forbidden, you shouldn't do it, the more challenging, the more they want that. And so I think to do it and to introduce these topics in a way that is answering the questions that they want to know answers to, addressing the topics that they're interested in, but also doing it in a way that, yes, there are true safety concerns, but learning from others like Alex and yourself and other families around here who have been through it, maybe who've had some pitfalls, but what have they learned? It's more of a constructive type style, which I think I was really attracted to. I wanted to keep these topics really positive so that families can talk about them. And then again, there's vignettes. I liked doing the interviews because talking about it in the abstract is one thing, but I think to have other individuals, young adults on the spectrum, be able to identify with individuals who have been through it, I think is exceptionally valuable. So, and what we found was that some individuals were interested in perhaps drinking and going to clubs. But then also there's a large number of the individuals we interviewed that were not interested. So I also wanted to give them a range of voices, a range of people to connect with, and kind of a range of solutions depending on what you're doing. And so taking the drinking as an example, even if you may have a kid who's not, or a young adult who's not interested in drinking, you still need to know the education surrounding drug and alcohol safety because you can't control what everyone else does. So it's kind of taking it in a way full circle. Some people are interested in doing this, some people aren't, but you still need to understand some of these broader issues because you're living in this world that is a social place. So I think that's kind of why I did it, and I'm just really excited to be a part of it, and it's been a real pleasure. And like Lisa said, I've learned a lot about the topic as well.
So Lisa, when you started working on the book and you were interviewing young people and their parents, did you notice a difference between the males and the females that you were talking to? Do they have a totally different perspective on how they see themselves being on the syndrome and growing into adulthood?
I'm actually going to let Tracy answer that because I didn't interview any females. So, I mean, as we know, I think it's a 5-to-1 ratio or something. And so everyone that I interviewed was male.
Well, I interviewed some females. I think, certainly I think there's different safety concerns. I mean, just from one, as strong as I like to think I am, and I am a feisty person, but there's even that physical difference, right? Males have a tendency to be bigger than females, so there's just even in terms of being out and about, being safe, not being alone, not putting yourself in vulnerable situations. I mean, I think that was more of a predominant concern for both the young women I interviewed and the families of these young women, right? And I think too, in terms of like the sexuality chapter, there's different consequences. So obviously STDs and STIs are consequences for both, but things like pregnancy, things like rape, which again can become a physical issue, can be more common in the females. One of the differences, again, and this is a small sample, so this is a little bit more anecdotal but in terms of some of the relationships, I found that more of the males were less interested in the relationships, and more of the girls were more interested in some of the relationships in terms of more of the emotional components of things.
Maybe so males normalized.
Yeah, that's what they normalized. Yeah. No, but I think there are suggestions for both males and females in the book, but again, the ratio is much higher for males, and especially the higher functioning you go, the ratio becomes more in favor of males. So, but there's certainly, comprehensive discussions of both genders in the book for sure.
So when the two of you were talking to parents, and I'm sure you both talked to parents, was there any one major concern that parents typically had?
I think for me, the biggest concern that parents had was being taken advantage of.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
By far. I mean, that was, and so that cuts across several domains, right? Because it could be sexually, it could be financially, it could be with any kind of resource. So it could be an independent, a young adult on the autism spectrum living independently. Somebody could just move in with them, and be their quote unquote roommate without financial responsibilities for the apartment or home or whatever. And this was also a concern with work product and school product. So getting someone to do your work for you. But it was definitely being taken advantage of that was the biggest concern. And then not knowing, and I think as a parent I can relate, if someone's taking advantage of your child and they're embarrassed by it, or more likely they don't recognize it, then, what do? You don't even know it's happening, so you can't help. And I think that's where most parents feel helpless.
I know as a parent myself, my first reaction always is wanting to jump in and try to resolve things or try to figure out, what the issue is, even if there is no issue. And especially when you have somebody who is on the spectrum, you're always assuming there is an issue, even if there's not. Tracy, you had something to add there.
Oh, no, I think I was just talking more about the victimization or the taking advantage of situations. And I'm losing track of what I wanted to say. But no, I think that was one of the biggest issues. And I think, like what you were saying, you want to jump in, but so often we really need to teach these young adults how to do it and connecting them. So one of the pieces of advice that one of the parents talked about was how important it is to get the young adult comfortable with their supervisor, getting their young adult comfortable with a peer at work that they know maybe is kind of on their side, getting comfortable with people. So if a case of victimization would occur, if a case of bullying occurs, that they can be the one to advocate, because it really doesn't do anyone any good to have someone else continually take charge of what they're doing. But it really is a challenge for these young adults to figure out what's going on, and when they want to make friends so badly and they're trying so hard to make friends, it can get really frustrating. And then sometimes both with either telling someone, you might be telling someone repetitively that bullying is happening and nothing's getting done. It's so easy to feel like just helpless and just give up. And it's kind of, I think, a similar phenomenon when you're trying to make friends and you're doing all the right things and putting forth really good efforts, and it's just not going somewhere. But I think, in fact, as I'm going to borrow something from what Alex had said and your son had said, it's about being yourself and putting yourself out there, letting them know what you're about, but also getting someone who gets you, right? If you can just have that one or two people that get you and can even sometimes help you, but get who you are, kind of know what you are, know what you need, love you for who you are. I mean, that's, if you can do that, I think that can really be such a really beautiful launching pad for putting yourself out there for other things. So I think Alex has really taught me a lot, specifically about a lot of things. He was really insightful, and so I've appreciated his and your assistance as well.
Well, yesterday Alex taught me a lot when he spoke here at the conference. It's interesting because when he stood before a room full of people, the first thing he said to me was, "Mom, you aren't going to speak at all." It was like, okay, this is your show. But normally what he says in an hour, he said in 25 minutes. He was very precise. But he did talk about the fact that people have to get to know who you are, but you have to get to know yourself first. Mm-hmm. And that to me was very insightful, because many on the spectrum really have a hard time knowing who they are. So how can we know who they are? I'm really looking forward to the book. I think it's going to help a lot of people. I'm looking forward to the book because it's not diagnostic. And I'm tired of reading diagnostic books. So it's going to be nice to hear what other individuals like Alex have to say and what other parents like myself have to say. So I can't thank the two of you enough. And I look forward to your next book, whatever that's going to be, because I'm sure there will be another one.
Bite your tongue, Karen. Bite your tongue.
You said what now?
Bite your tongue.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
Now, I know Lisa will have another book. In fact, how's your last book going?
Oh, thanks for asking. It's going really well. We've the book is actually released August 1st, and we've pre-sold tons and tons of them. So I'm super excited about that, and that is the one that came out from Springer. And then the previous book, the other Jessica Kingsley book, is now in its second run because we sold out the first. So that's really exciting. Yeah.
Well, watch our blog at myimpossibledreamah.wordpress, and we will have a link to the books on there. And again, Thank you, Lisa, and I hope you get to your airplane on time.
Karen.
She's off to Florida from beautiful sunny Cleveland. And Tracy, thank you for joining me, and your lovely assistant over there, Taylor. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Yeah.